You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona. With me always, my good friends,
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in the hills of Texas.
That's right. Welcome
In
back.
the hills of Texas.
I think AK Mike is actually down at Jay's this weekend, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
They were able to get together. Yeah. So welcome back. We missed you the last couple episodes. We understand you were doing some community theater. Being a thespian. And,
I was.
Yeah. We saw a Facebook post or two. It looked like you have fun. So
Yeah, I did. It was a good show.
Excited. Good.
Yeah, we had a real good
Glad
time.
to hear it. So excellent. And then you guys are playing down there as well. You just kind of showed up, and I guess you had a what are you doing in Texas?
Well, I live here in Texas, but I'm doing in Austin or in Jay's area is because
that's right.
My daughter's here from Alaska. She's come down to visit. They're doing some stuff. She's got some stuff to work on, and so I decided to come see her while she's down here.
Nice. Well, then you killed two birds with one stone. Then
That's right. Well, I haven't killed
That's
Jay
excellent.
yet, but that'll
we're
happen later.
happy that we're okay. Well, that's three birds with one stone, but that's no problem.
There you go.
Well, welcome back to the Park Flyer Podcast for all of you listeners. If you haven't already, jump on our YouTube page, like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. That helps us out. And also check us out on all of your favorite podcasts, Spotify, Apple. I think last week we mentioned that we were on Amazon Podcast now and Podbean or some of the other ones, I think. But yeah, from all over the world, I think we're looking at our metrics the other day, and we're doing pretty well. We're getting a bigger and bigger audience, nation or worldwide actually, and would like to reach out. I think Canada is our second largest listeners, and then Japan right after that. So if you're from either one of those areas, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for listening to us, and reach out, shoot us an email, and tell us what you think at parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. We'll try to respond as quick as we can. So, all right. So last week we were talking a little bit, or last couple weeks ago, we were talking about electric motors, and Jim had done a repair, and we were just getting ready at the end of the podcast to go do a maiden flight with the new repair. And from what I understand, it went somewhat successful. From what I understand,
Jay? It was. Well, first, before we start this, as always, I think we should start out with some safety stuff. And I learned something that particular week. Another RC aviation safety thing, hint of the week, and this one. This was kind of strange, as you know, we just had our safety issue about a month ago, I guess, which we had to checklist and everything, right? So this one comes down to, you're flying, and let's say you notice the plane, something's wonky with it, so you land it, you adjust whatever's wonky, and then you go up to fly again, right? And one thing I have to, and it's so funny because it hasn't happened to me yet, but I can see how it could happen to me in the sense, because it's something I think all of us have done. Or let's put it this way. Any listener that's over the age of 45, it's something that they could do. And definitely, that's why I want to get this out. So we're flying. Something was wonky with the plane. Jim lands. We adjust the wonkiness. We get back up. Jim takes off. He's flying. And he's like, Jay. And I'm like, what's wrong, Jim? And I'm like looking all around, and he's like, hey, come over here. And I'm like, what's wrong? And I'm thinking he's going to tell me like he needs me more up elevator, right or left aileron, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like,
trim or something.
Yeah. And he goes, I can't see a thing. Everything's blurry. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean everything's blurry? He's like, I can't see a thing, man. I don't know what the plane's doing. It's all blurry. You got to help me. You got to help me. And I'm just like, what? Okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I'm just looking at him. I have no clue what is wrong, and he goes, pull my glasses off, pull my glasses off. And then I look up and I notice what he's talking about. He still has his readers on. So when we were fixing the wonkiness, he has his readers on and he worked on the thing. Then, we're like, okay, wonkiness is all good. I walked back out with the plane. I stood close, held the plane up. He did the function check, walked out a few feet, put the plane down. Jim takes right off, gets up about, danger high, then he realizes he has these glasses on and he couldn't take them off because, he's flying the plane. And,
Right.
so it was kind of funny, type, haha. But on the flip side, I was like, ooh, I could see that happening to me, because we're, how many times have you gone out, you're working on something and you just leave
Old
them on,
man
and you're
humor,
doing your
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
That's it.
It is
That's
old
it.
man
So,
humor.
folks, make sure that before you take your plane off, put your sunglasses on, take your readers off, and make sure they're off before you go and fly. Because had I not been there, or I've been, let's say there was it was just Jim and I out there, but if there had been a flight line, a bunch of guys, and I'd been back in the pits, dinking with my own plane or something, I wouldn't have heard Jim or known to get up there. By that time, the plane's flying further away. It's getting even worse.
Yeah.
It could have been a disaster. So, yeah. So watch what you're doing with your readers and take those specs off.
Funny. That's funny because it not only applies to the RC world, but in my world, it applies as well. And this wasn't recently, it's been a few years, but when I first got glasses, I first got my readers. As you get older, your eyes, you need something to focus. And so anyway, I was in the simulator for recurrent training, and we, they load you up and they give you all these emergencies. And I had my new glasses on and I was looking around and I could see everything and I was reading. And at that particular time, something went boom, and I was like, "Oh man!" And we have to do an emergency descent out of 32,000 feet down to 10,000 feet. And so, as you start the descent, you have to put your oxygen mask on, and we have a full face oxygen mask. And so, I looked down and said, what was the noise?" And the guy's like, "Oh my gosh, we got smoke. There's smoke billowing out." And we need to get on the ground. I think we have a cargo fire or something, And so anyway, it's in training. It's not for real, but the simulator, you really can't tell. It's the same. And so I reached down and I put my entire oxygen mask on and I didn't think a thing of it. And I'm doing my thing. I'm calling for checklists. I'm talking to everybody. We're descending. We roll in. We declare an emergency. We're coming into the runway and I take the airplane and I look up to look outside to land the airplane and realize I'm in the same boat that Jim is. I can't see 2.5 inches past my face, and I got to land this big airplane. And I'm looking outside, going, "Man, I can't even tell where the runway is. I don't know where anything is." Luckily, inside, I can see the instruments up close, right? So they're really close to me. So I just flew the airplane all the way. And since it's a simulator, but had it not been a simulator, I would have had to take the mask off. But I just the airplane's capable of landing with zero visibility, so I wasn't really worried about it. But I just held it on there until I heard, the countdown for the feet above the ground. It goes 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. And I just boom, we hit not hard, but we hit firm. And the guy said, "Hey, great job." And I just looked up at him and I went, "Thanks," because I couldn't, it was like just a sheer blur, anything past, what was right in front of me. So I know exactly how he feels. So yeah, kudos to Jim for being able to keep it up, and not just totally give up and crash. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I wear my glasses down a little bit now so that if something like that happened, I can always look over the rim of them. I don't push them all the way up where I, can't see over the top. Oh, anyway, that's exactly how I feel. Anyway, well, it looks like Jay's got to go take care of his interruption of the dog, but we always enjoy hearing the safety tips from the flight line, and that's a good safety tip, especially for those of us that get older and do wear glasses. And sometimes I've actually got out to the field where I forgot my glasses, and now I can't see putting the thing together. I had to have help putting the airplane together, but I can see out if if I can see totally, distances. I just can't see something up front. So, and do you wear readers too, Mike? Or your readers are for far away, or your
No,
glasses
mine
are
are for
far away?
readers. Yeah, far away I can see without glasses. In fact, I was just talking to my eye doctor about that. It's like
Okay.
we tried contacts, and they want to do one far, one close. And it's like, yeah, I can't see my airplanes when I'm flying because they just look blurry, and I can't
Mm,
really see them. So it's better I just don't have any glasses at all,
mhm.
and just wear mirror readers when everything's close.
Gotcha.
But I have transition lenses,
Yeah.
so I can actually see when I have my glasses. So that's why I wear glasses, because the contacts just don't work for me.
Yeah. So when you transition, do they get darker when you like if you walk outside, they get darker?
Yeah, exactly.
Or you
Yep.
oh, okay.
But transition, it has to do with the way that the glasses. I'm sorry. There's transition. Then there's what's the other thing? Where I have trifocals basically. So
Oh, trifocals. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So but there's
Yeah,
no
so that you can
lines,
see
right?
far.
Right.
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 Oh, I
Exactly.
gotcha. Right.
Exactly.
They're blended, so it's not like okay.
Exactly.
Well, that's
Exactly.
cool.
Progressive is what I
So
think they called it. Sorry.
good safety tip there, Jay. We appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes,
Like I
yeah,
said,
progressive.
luckily
That
Jim
works.
kept us cool,
So
and
yeah. So Jay, yeah.
so like I said, he kept us cool, and brought the plane around, and I was able to rip the glasses off his face without knocking the radio down or nothing crazy like that. And the funny part was, we
Yeah.
landed, fiddled around more with the plane, made a joke about what happened, and then Jim took off again and he had his glasses on again. And I had
Did
to
it
take them off
again.
again. I'm just like, well, okay, well, I can see we're gonna definitely have to talk about this in the podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's always funny, and it's happened to the best of us. So there you
Yep.
go. Perfect. So tell us a little bit about the flight with the new motor.
Right. So his Sig Rascal, he has a 60 size Sig Rascal. As we talked about last week, the wire in the motor had snapped or broken, and we, at first he was like, "I just got this thing. What am I going to do?" And he was thinking he was going to have to throw it away. And I talked to him about, "Hey, the repairs are easy. You just have to scratch off the enamel, resolder it, put it back, resecure it, and hopefully, if it broke in the right place, this will be a really easy fix. Or if it's just a magnet that got loose, you just put some more epoxy on it, slide it back in, you can still use it." So luckily, it had broken in a good place where he was able to repair it, and then and then scooch it back into the housing so it wasn't rubbing or anything. He said he had run it up to full speed, and I made him do it with me before he took off. And I'm like, okay, it sounds good. It spins easy. I think you're good to go. And so he took it off, and um, maybe had a little bit of we had a little bit of trim issues because we were still in that maidening phase with the plane. But we got the plane flying
Mm,
all right, and I was like, "Wow, that's fantastic." In fact, for our field, it was kind of weird because we had no wind. It was very little wind, which kind of throws us off, right? No wind, but we got the plane trimmed out. Everything seemed fine, and then I said, there was a question I meant to talk about when last time we were on, was when you do make those repairs. One of the things you might want to do is make sure that you epoxy that wire down within the motor, or
mm,
you make sure you
right.
fasten it as best that you can, either with the wires in that sleeve that it's with, and in that group of wires, just to put some epoxy down on it. Don't slop it in there, but just put enough so that they bind and join, and you kind of coat the wire that you had to scrape off all the enamel. Therefore you
Mm,
won't get any shorts. And the more important thing is that it doesn't come loose, wind against the housing again, or you don't want anything rattling or rattling enough that it breaks the solder joint. You get a cold solder joint. And I said, "Well, what did you do, Jim?" And he's like, "Oh, I didn't
right.
do anything. I just stuffed it back in there." I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to say that's a problem, but it could be a
Mm,
problem. So just be aware that that thing could break loose and we could have a problem." So I think it was like
true.
I want to say the third flight, third or fourth flight, because he'd flown it, I had flown it, he'd flown it, and I'd flown it, type of thing. And so Jim was up, at bat, and he's flying along, and I'm sitting in a chair relaxing, or fiddling with one of my planes, and all of a sudden, he's coming around, he's coming downwind to base, and all of a sudden I hear it makes that high pitched squeal like you're out of sync, right? Just makes, real loud. Reek! It makes that sound. And I'm like, oh no, I think that wire busted, right? Because now you only have two phases. I think that wire's busted.
Right.
You better land.
Right.
And, so I kind of got Jim excited. So he throttled back. He throttled back the thing. He did an emergency landing. Unfortunately, it was a little high. So, but he got it all down in one piece. Landed the plane. Like I said, it might have got a little bit of damage to the landing gear. Nothing major. So we checked it all out again. We ran the motor up. We checked it, and we couldn't make it repeat. We're spinning it. We couldn't feel anything loose. So I'm like, oh, maybe it got out of sync. I don't know. We ran it up several times. It didn't. We couldn't make it repeat. And I was like, well, hey, Jim, I'm real sorry about the hard landing, because, he goes, well, I didn't want to put the motor on. And I'm like, well, that's a good choice, because you didn't want to screw up anymore or cause a fire or do something crazy. But the plane looked okay. So I was my turn up to take the plane up. So I took it up and was doing a little touch and goes and stuff, and was bringing it in for its final landing. That I've been having lots of bad luck with his planes. When I'm flying his planes lately, I seem to I just have this thing about tearing his gear off.
Yeah.
And I landed maybe a little hot, but once again, nothing that I thought would do any damage. But I think, with a couple of landings that we had that day, it was one of those things that was kind of cumulative. And I landed. I went to kind of turn the plane on the field. It kind of skipped, put that side loading on the gear, and that's all she wrote. And I ripped that gear clean off, and I was like, no way. And so we were like, oh, fantastic. So not fantastic. I ripped the gear off, but got it down. I looked at it. I'm like, oh well, it looks like it's a pretty clean break. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's not that bad. I can repair this. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't mean to break your rascal. He's like, oh, this gear's torn off before. Don't worry about it. I was like, oh, good. Well, no, not good. I don't feel good about ripping guy's gear off. But anyway,
I wasn't the first one.
I wasn't the first one. But the good part about this whole thing, although the plane got a little bit of damage here and there, but the motor worked flawlessly. I don't know what caused that out of sync noise, or the motor was strong the whole time after that, and it didn't repeat. So I don't know what happened, but it just made one of those funky
heat related
sounds.
Maybe.
No, it's cool. It's nice and cool. It was only in the 60s down here, or 65. It wasn't that hot at all, or it was a nice cool day. So it wasn't like the plane was overheating. The battery wasn't puffy or warm or nothing. In fact, that motor combo with I think he's flying a 6-cell on that thing now. It just sips the juice. We're flying for 8 minutes, and it still had 90% of the battery left. We weren't doing crazy flying with it. We were just kind of flying in the box, and we weren't doing acrobatics with it. We were just feeling the plane out. So, but if you're just going to go up there and putt, man, that plane is fantastic just to let you fly and cruise for a long time. I think you can get 12 minutes or so out of that plane. So it was cool. Very cool.
That's not the airplane that he put the motor in ESC that's not supposed to be a 6L, and you can only go half throttle on it. Right?
No. That was originally when we
okay.
So he had gotten some 5 cells for something else, or maybe it was the 6 cells. Mm-hmm. And the plane was set up for 4 cells, but the escape the ESC could go up to it was rated for 6 cells. So he goes, hey, what I want to try 6 cells in here, because I have this new battery for the A10 or the Franken-10, and well, A10
Right.
before it became the Franken-10. And he's like, "Hey, let's
Right.
try this battery out." And I go, "Well, you will get more power. It should work better, but you have to be real careful because you can burn this thing out
Right.
in a heartbeat." And so we flew it, and it basically flew like a bat out of hell at quarter throttle.
Wow.
And so it was really beating the sheet, so to speak, for flying. So barely had to go to
Right.
half throttle. I mean, it was just screaming. So, but yeah, quarter throttle or less than quarter throttle is all it needed.
Well, that's good though. If he's using the new combination where he's got a 6-cell and the ESC and the motor are good for the 6-cell, that's why it seems like it's very efficient. Now, I am running through my head. I think that maybe did he revarnish the actual
He did not
wire at all?
No.
I mean,
No, he did not. He just stuck it back in there.
So maybe that touched something, or he got a misfire in there.
Maybe
could a magnet could have touched it, or
don't know.
Could have ground out. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know.
That's the crappy part, when you're up there flying, you don't have any way to log any of that stuff. So I mean, you could see your voltage drop maybe if you had telemetry or something, but once that happens, you're just kind of like, oh crap, come down here and check everything, and if it never happens again, you really don't know what it was.
I think that was a spider
and that's
challenge.
the sad part with spider
Probably
challenge.
Was.
Yeah, hey Billy, why don't you put your hands across those two things, see what happens? It'll probably be fine.
Yeah, that's true. Grab that big wire.
Yeah,
grab one wire and the other wire. See if it comes out.
Yeah, it won't hurt. Just grab them both same time. Ready, go.
Yeah, that's funny.
Let's play ER.
Yeah. See if your pacemaker's working.
That's how I charge it now.
Clear.
Exactly.
Funny. Well, so did you fly anything else? I mean, it sounds like the motor worked after he did all that.
It worked flawlessly. Except for that one hiccup, it was working flawlessly the whole time we were out there. It was one of those days where Jim brought out a small repertoire of aircraft, but so like we flew the A10, the Franken-10 again, and we ripped the gear off of that again. Yours truly.
That's par for the course, though. I think that's the way you land it, is just rip the gear clean off. At least it comes to a stop. It doesn't roll as far with the gear removed.
So what I suggested to Jim for repairs for this plane. So everybody's complaining about this aircraft and its gear. Okay. So I said, instead of buying more of the gear, isn't that a sign of insanity when you keep repeating the same thing and expecting different results? So I was like, instead of buying more of that gear, and if that pin, he bought a whole bunch of the pins in case they break. And I'm like, if those pins are only 3 millimeters, and I was thinking like in the Motion RC gear, I was like, I think they're 4 or 5 millimeter, for the pins for those. I go, you know what?
4.5, I believe.
Let's screw that gear. Let's go get the Motion RC gear off of like my L39. I said, I'm pretty sure we can make them fit in this plane. And then I know, because I haven't ripped the gear out of my plane. I've only ripped them out, or they've come out once or twice, but they didn't have after I re-glued them in, they had insignificant glue on them. They barely had any glue on them, or that silicone stuff that they use that they glue them in with. But once I put them in and Gorilla glued them or whatever, they have my gear hasn't come out. So I just said, let's, I think, maybe for your birthday or Christmas coming up, maybe I'll get you some gear, we'll put those suckers in there. And I think it'll be better. It won't look scale, but the plane doesn't exactly look, perfectly scale now. But
so these are
why don't you just give
the
them
Motion
100 glue
RC?
sticks?
Yeah, there you go. 100 glue sticks will work. Just pour them all in there. So you're wanting to convert this from a straight leg gear to a trailing leg gear, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, because the A10, the Motion RC A10 has trailing link gear,
Yes.
and it has a conversion. It has a conversion to straight leg gear if you're flying on concrete or pavement. But if you're flying on unimproved, like grass or some other type dirt or whatever,
I
then
would
they have
call
those
Jay's
trailing link gear,
property
which are not
unimproved
totally
grass.
scale. I would too. Lumpy unimproved grass.
Lumping, that's
Yeah,
right.
they give you a
Really
little hoppy
unimproved.
skeppy. Actually, it's better improved when he mows it, but yeah, it's unimproved if he doesn't. Well, that'd be interesting. We'll have to
Sometimes it
see if
helps you
that
take
actually
off.
works. I think that. Say it again.
I said sometimes it helps you take off. You know, you get into a little rut, and then you come back out of the rut, and then you're flying in the air.
Yes, that's true. The little bouncy gets you airborne a little quicker than you want to sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have no problems taking off with that.
So
with the stock
how big
gear.
it?
Yeah, I was saying we don't have a problem
Right.
taking off with the stock gear. It's just on the landings, and like I said, I'm not when I'm landing. It's not like I'm landing so hot. It's like double the speed of when I land the L39, the Motion L39. It's what I would consider normal for the Motion L39. Now the thing about the Franken 10, you can slow it way down. A lot slower. Now that day we didn't have a headwind. There was no wind. So I was coming in. I got her dirty. Had the flaps dropped. I'm coming in, and I started dropping a little bit more. I'm pulling back to kind of get it to float. To do that, to extend the run, to extend it out. Before I landed, but it didn't land any harder than I land the L39. And like I said, it hit. The gear rips off, and then puts the side loading on, and then the front gear pulls out. That's just because there's not enough meat in the nose anymore. There definitely needs to be more meat up in the nose, but that rips out. So I just think we need a different type of gear. Either the those, like I said, those little pins in there, I think are only 3 millimeters. And I haven't, and I'm pretty sure in ours, like you said, they're 4 or 5 millimeters thick, and that little bit of meat, I think, is the answer, and the trailing link for sure. So.
Yeah. What size is the EDF? Is it an 80 millimeter or is it 70?
65 or 6.
So it's even smaller.
65. Yeah, it's smaller.
Yeah. Huh. Well, it'd be interesting to see if the motion gear will fit in there, especially if we're flying it off a grass field. But
yeah, so the servo setup, I think, is almost identical. It's just the wheels are different. So I mean, all we'd have to do is figure out how to swap the wheels or to drill out the hubs of the wheels that we already have. You know what I mean? To make them fit the axles, or if we can swap out the axles that we have from the other ones. You know what I mean? So that part we haven't wrapped our head around to really start measuring things. But I just think that style of gear is the way to go for this plane.
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you're flying on gas, you need something that a straight leg gear is going to take a lot of beating, especially on a field like yours, which has more of a clumpy grass than a nice smooth grass. If it was all like, if you were on a golf course type grass, like
well, that would be wonderful, but that is not my field.
Nice and soft. Right. But that's not your field. So, I mean, yours is kind of choppy, and it does, grass grows great in Texas when it's raining, but in the summertime it's kind of that clumpy crabgrass looking stuff.
Right.
So.
Right.
And if anybody wants to send us some bluegrass or some, golf grass seed that we can lay down there, just feel free. Just ship it down to Jay and get that laid out.
Then it will get Shoot us an email at parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll give you Jay's address and send him some grass.
Yeah, exactly. We'll let you know where to send
it. The growing type. For his field.
And then plan on visiting Jay so you can help him put it down.
That's true. So, well, we're excited that it did work. Our time is up for this week, but we are understand Pete came down and flew with you as well. So
that he
next
did.
Time we'll give a little talk on Pete. He brought an airplane down at you, I think, and we will go out and have some fun. So we're looking forward to that report. And other than that, I'm Michael from Arizona.
I'm Jay from the hills of Texas.
And I'm AK Mike in Texas, in the hills of Texas.
The hills of Texas.
We'll see you in 2 weeks. He's going to do that
Let's
too.
fly.
Mike's going to have to do it on his own. All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.